Black janitor bullied at work find hope after Ronaldo steps in. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. Samuel pushed his cleaning cart down the polished hallway of the prestigious corporate office, the wheels squeaking softly against the marble floor. At 55 years old, Samuel had been working as a janitor in this building for over 2 decades. He took pride in his work, making sure every corner was spotless, every trash bin emptied. As he turned the corner, he nearly collided with Richard, his supervisor. Richard looked at him with disdain, as if Samuel were nothing more than a stain on his expensive suit. "Watch where you're going," Richard snapped, sidestepping the cart. "Sorry, sir," Samuel mumbled, lowering his eyes. He was used to this treatment, the condescending glares, the snide remarks. To most of the people in this building, he was invisible, just a shadow moving between the cubicles. Samuel continued his rounds, dusting the bookshelves in the executive lounge, polishing the large windows that overlooked the city. As he worked, his mind drifted to a day many years ago, a day that he held close to his heart. He had been cleaning the floors at a local sports arena when a young man had burst through the doors, his face streaked with tears. It was Cristiano Ronaldo, then a rising star in the football world. Samuel had recognized him instantly. Ronaldo had been distraught over a recent loss, blaming himself for his team's defeat. Samuel, seeing the young man's pain, had offered a kind word, a gesture of support. Ronaldo had been surprised that this janitor, a stranger, had taken the time to comfort him. They had talked for a while, Samuel offering encouragement and perspective. By the end of the conversation, Ronaldo's tears had dried, replaced by a look of determination. He thanked Samuel profusely before leaving, promising never to forget his kindness. Samuel smiled at the memory as he continued his work. He never expected to see Ronaldo again, but that moment had stayed with him, a bright spot in his often challenging life. In another part of the city, Cristiano Ronaldo sat in a plush hotel room, preparing for a press conference. He was now a global superstar, his name synonymous with football greatness. But as he sat there, his mind was far from the flashing cameras and eager journalists. He was thinking about Samuel, the kind janitor he had met years ago. Ronaldo had never forgotten him, the way he had offered comfort and encouragement at a moment when Ronaldo had needed it most. He often wondered what had become of Samuel, hoping that life had treated him well. A knock at the door pulled Ronaldo from his thoughts. It was time for the press conference. He straightened his tie, took a deep breath, and stepped out into the hallway. As he answered questions about his latest victories and future plans, Ronaldo's mind kept drifting back to Samuel. He made a decision then, a promise to himself. He would find Samuel, no matter what it took. He would find a way to repay the kindness that had meant so much to him. The press conference ended, and Ronaldo immediately set his plan into motion. He called his agent, explaining the situation and asking for help. His agent, used to Ronaldo's philanthropic endeavors, immediately began making inquiries, searching for any information about a janitor named Samuel. Days turned into weeks as they searched, following leads and making countless phone calls. Just as Ronaldo was starting to lose hope, his agent called with news. They had found him. Samuel was working at a prestigious corporate office downtown. Ronaldo felt a surge of excitement. He knew what he had to do. He had to go to Samuel to thank him in person. But first, he had to make a few more arrangements. Back at the office, Samuel was struggling through another day. Richard, his supervisor, seemed to be in a particularly foul mood, barking orders and criticisms at every turn. "You missed a spot," Richard sneered as Samuel mopped the floor of the executive bathroom. "Do it again." Samuel bit his tongue, fighting back the urge to respond. He knew that any backtalk would only lead to more trouble. So he simply nodded, pushing the mop over the already gleaming tiles. As he worked, he could hear laughter echoing from the break room. The executives were throwing a birthday party for one of their own, complete with cake and champagne. Samuel could smell the sweet aroma wafting through the halls, a stark contrast to the harsh chemical scent of his cleaning supplies. Suddenly, Richard burst into the bathroom, his face red with anger. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "I told you to clean the conference room first." Samuel froze, confused. He was certain Richard had told him to start with the bathrooms. But before he could explain, Richard was already yelling again. "Useless," he spat. "Absolutely useless. I don't know why we even keep you around." With that, Richard stormed out, leaving Samuel standing there, mop in hand, fighting back tears of frustration and humiliation. It was then that the intercom crackled to life, a voice announcing, "Samuel to the front desk, please." Samuel to the front desk. Samuel's heart sank. What now? Was he being fired? Had Richard finally found a way to get rid of him? With a heavy heart, he made his way to the front of the building, steeling himself for the worst. But as he rounded the corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. There, standing at the front desk, was Cristiano Ronaldo himself. Samuel couldn't believe his eyes. Cristiano Ronaldo here, in this building? It had to be a dream. But it was no dream. Ronaldo spotted him and immediately broke into a wide smile. "Samuel," he exclaimed, striding forward and pulling the shocked janitor into a warm embrace. The entire lobby fell silent, everyone staring in disbelief at the scene unfolding before them. The great Cristiano Ronaldo hugging a janitor? Ronaldo pulled back, his hands on Samuel's shoulders, looking him in the eye. "I've been looking for you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I never forgot what you did for me, how you helped me during one of the darkest moments of my life." Samuel, still in shock, could only nod, his eyes welling with tears. Ronaldo turned to the gathered crowd, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "This man," he said, pointing to Samuel, "showed me a kindness that I've never forgotten. He taught me that greatness isn't about fame or fortune, but about how we treat others." The onlookers were stunned, their whispers growing louder. Richard, who had come running at the commotion, stood at the back of the crowd, his mouth hanging open. Ronaldo wasn't finished. "I've come here today," he continued, "not just to thank Samuel, but to remind everyone that every person, no matter their job or status, deserves respect and dignity." He turned back to Samuel, smiling warmly. "I have a surprise for you," he said. "But first, let's talk. We have a lot to catch up on." With that, he led Samuel away, leaving the crowd buzzing with excitement and Richard seething with rage. News of Ronaldo's visit spread through the office like wildfire. Employees who had never given Samuel a second glance were suddenly eager to talk to him, to hear about his friendship with the football star. Samuel, for his part, was overwhelmed by the attention. He had never sought the spotlight, content to do his job quietly and go home to his small apartment. But now he found himself the center of attention, the subject of water cooler gossip and breakroom chatter. Richard, however, was not happy. He saw Samuel's sudden popularity as a threat to his authority. He couldn't stand the idea that a lowly janitor was receiving more respect and admiration than he was. He called Samuel into his office, his face tight with anger. "Don't think this changes anything," he growled. "You're still just a janitor. Ronaldo's visit doesn't make you special." Samuel said nothing, simply nodding and leaving the office. He knew that Richard's anger came from a place of insecurity, a fear of losing his power. But he also knew that Ronaldo's words had struck a chord with many of the employees. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change. And change they did. Over the next few days, Samuel noticed a shift in the atmosphere of the office. Employees who had once ignored him now greeted him with smiles and kind words. Some even started leaving small gifts on his cleaning cart, tokens of appreciation for his hard work. One executive, a woman named Lisa who had always been particularly cold to Samuel, even stopped him in the hallway. "I wanted to apologize," she said, her eyes filled with genuine remorse. "I've treated you unfairly, and I'm sorry. You deserve better." Samuel was touched by the gesture, by the sincere apology. It felt like a weight was lifting from his shoulders, the burden of years of mistreatment slowly easing. But Richard's anger only grew. He couldn't stand to see Samuel receiving such positive attention. He started looking for ways to undermine him, to put him back in his place. Richard's opportunity came sooner than expected. One morning, as Samuel was cleaning the executive lounge, he accidentally knocked over a vase, sending water and flowers spilling across the expensive carpet. Before Samuel could even begin to clean up the mess, Richard burst in, his face contorted with rage. "Look what you've done," he shouted, pointing at the soggy carpet. "You clumsy oaf." Samuel immediately started apologizing, reaching for his cleaning supplies. But Richard wasn't having it. In front of a group of shocked executives, he began to berate Samuel, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're a disgrace," he sneered. "A useless, incompetent fool. I should have fired you years ago." Samuel felt the sting of the words, the humiliation burning his cheeks. But as he looked around at the faces of the executives, he saw something unexpected: sympathy. Many of them were frowning at Richard, their disapproval clear. Lisa, the executive who had apologized to Samuel, stepped forward. "That's enough, Richard," she said firmly. "It was an accident. There's no need for this kind of behavior." Richard wheeled on her, his eyes flashing. "Stay out of this," he snapped. "This doesn't concern you." But Lisa didn't back down. "It concerns all of us," she said. "We're a team here, and that includes Samuel. He deserves respect, just like anyone else." Other executives started to nod, murmuring their agreement. Richard looked around, realizing that he was losing control of the situation. With a final glare at Samuel, he stormed out of the room. As the doors slammed behind him, Lisa turned to Samuel. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. Samuel nodded, too choked up to speak. He had never expected anyone to defend him, to stand up to Richard on his behalf. Lisa smiled. "Let's get this cleaned up," she said, kneeling down to help Samuel gather the broken pieces of the vase. As they worked, Samuel felt a spark of hope. Maybe Ronaldo's visit had started something, a chain reaction of kindness and respect. Maybe, just maybe, the office was starting to change for the better. The next day, Samuel arrived at work to find a surprise waiting for him. On his cleaning cart was a brand new uniform, crisp and clean, with his name embroidered on the front. Beside the uniform was a note. Samuel picked it up, his hand shaking slightly as he read, "Dear Samuel, your hard work and dedication have not gone unnoticed. Please accept this new uniform as a token of our appreciation. Sincerely, the executive team." Samuel felt tears prick his eyes. In all his years working here, he had never received any kind of recognition, let alone a gift. He put on the new uniform, marveling at the way it fit, the way it made him feel proud and respected. As he started his rounds, he noticed something else. The executives were talking to him. Not just polite greetings, but actual conversations. They asked about his day, his family, his hobbies. They treated him like a colleague, a friend. Even Richard seemed different. He didn't apologize for his outburst, but he didn't go out of his way to harass Samuel either. It was as if Ronaldo's visit and the subsequent events had taken the wind out of his sails. In the break room, Samuel found another surprise. The employees had put together a small celebration for him, complete with a cake and a card signed by everyone. Samuel was overwhelmed, the love and support bringing tears to his eyes. As he cut the cake, sharing it with his colleagues, Samuel felt a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. For the first time in his career, he felt like he was part of something, a valued member of the team. And as he looked around at the smiling faces, at the people who had once ignored him but now embraced him, Samuel knew that this was just the beginning. The seeds of change had been planted, and they were starting to grow. As the weeks passed, the changes in the office became more and more apparent. Employees started taking more pride in their work, treating each other with more respect and kindness. The once cold and sterile environment started to feel warmer, more inviting. Samuel was at the heart of this transformation. His positive attitude and gentle demeanor were infectious, spreading throughout the office like a beacon of light. People started coming to him for advice, for a friendly ear, for a bit of encouragement. Even Richard couldn't escape the change. One day, as Samuel was cleaning his office, Richard called him over. Samuel braced himself, expecting another tirade. But instead, Richard surprised him. "I wanted to apologize," he said, his voice gruff but sincere. "I've been hard on you, harder than I should have been. I let my pride and my ego get the best of me." Samuel was stunned. He had never expected to hear these words from Richard, of all people. Richard continued, "I've been watching you, seeing how you interact with everyone. You have a gift, Samuel. A gift for bringing out the best in people. I could learn a thing or two from you." Samuel felt a lump in his throat. He had never been praised like this, especially not by someone like Richard. "Thank you, sir," he managed to say. "That means a lot to me." Richard nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I have a proposition for you," he said. "I'd like you to lead a new initiative, a community outreach program. We'll partner with local charities, volunteer our time and resources, and I want you to spearhead it." Samuel's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a janitor." Richard shook his head. "You're more than that, Samuel. You're the heart of this company. And I think it's time we started showing that to the world." Samuel felt a rush of pride, of purpose. He knew that this was his chance, his opportunity to make a real difference. And he knew that he was ready for the challenge. The community outreach program was a resounding success. Under Samuel's leadership, the company partnered with local schools, homeless shelters, and food banks. Employees volunteered their time, donating resources and expertise to those in need. Samuel was in his element. He organized events, coordinated volunteers, and served as a liaison between the company and the community. His kind heart and gentle spirit were a perfect fit for the role, and he quickly became a beloved figure in the neighborhood. Back at the office, the impact of the program was clear. Employees who had once been focused solely on their own advancement were now thinking about the greater good. They talked about their volunteer experiences, shared ideas for new initiatives, and bonded over their shared sense of purpose. Even the physical space of the office began to change. Inspired by Samuel's love of gardening, employees started bringing in plants, turning their cubicles and offices into mini green spaces. The once sterile walls were now adorned with photos from volunteer events, images of smiling faces and helping hands. And at the center of it all was Samuel. He was the glue that held everything together, the quiet force that kept the momentum going. His influence was felt in every corner of the company, from the executive suites to the mailroom. But Samuel wasn't content to rest on his laurels. He knew that there was always more work to be done, more people to help. And so he pushed forward, driven by a love for his community and a deep sense of purpose. Under his guidance, the company's outreach efforts expanded. They started a mentorship program for underprivileged youth, a job training initiative for the unemployed. They became a model for corporate social responsibility, a shining example of what businesses could achieve when they put people first. And through it all, Samuel remained the same humble, kind-hearted man he had always been. He didn't seek the spotlight, didn't want the accolades. For him, the real reward was in the work itself, in the lives he touched and the hearts he changed. As the company's reputation grew, so did the media attention. Journalists started showing up at the office, eager to talk to the man behind the transformation. Samuel was reluctant at first, uncomfortable with the idea of being in the limelight. But Richard convinced him to share his story, to inspire others with his message of hope and kindness. And so Samuel found himself in front of cameras and microphones, telling his tale to a rapt audience. He spoke about his childhood, about the hardships he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. He talked about the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect, no matter their station in life. His words struck a chord. Viewers from all over the world reached out to share their own stories, to thank Samuel for his inspiration. His message of hope and unity spread far beyond the walls of the office, touching hearts and changing minds. Back at the company, Samuel's influence continued to grow. He was invited to sit in on executive meetings, to share his insights and ideas. His opinion was sought on everything from hiring decisions to strategic planning. But through it all, Samuel remained grounded. He still arrived early every morning to clean the offices, still took the time to chat with his colleagues and offer a helping hand. He knew that his true power came not from his position, but from his actions, from the way he treated others. And as he looked around at the thriving, vibrant community that the office had become, Samuel knew that this was his legacy. Not the accolades or the media attention, but the lives he had touched, the hearts he had changed. He thought back to that fateful day when Ronaldo had walked into the office. A single act of kindness had sparked a chain reaction of love and compassion. He realized that this had been Ronaldo's true gift, not the visit itself, but the reminder of the power we all hold to make a difference. With a smile on his face and a song in his heart, Samuel picked up his mop and got back to work. There was still much to do, many more lives to touch. But he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. And as the sun rose over the city, casting its golden light over the office windows, Samuel knew that the future was bright, because he had seen firsthand the power of kindness, the strength of unity. And he knew that as long as there were people like him, people willing to lead with their hearts, there would always be hope. Months turned into years, and the company continued to thrive under Samuel's quiet leadership. The outreach programs became a model for businesses around the world, a shining example of corporate responsibility and community engagement. But Samuel knew that their work was far from finished. There were always more people to help, more bridges to build. And so he kept pushing, kept innovating, kept inspiring those around him to be their best selves. One day, as Samuel was working in the community garden that he had helped establish, he received a visitor. It was Ronaldo, looking older and wiser, but with the same twinkle in his eye. "Samuel," he said, embracing his old friend. "Look at what you've built here. Look at how you've changed the world." Samuel smiled humbly. "I didn't do it alone," he said. "It was a team effort, a community effort." Ronaldo nodded. "But it started with you," he said. "With your kindness, your compassion. You showed everyone here what was possible when we lead with our hearts." Samuel felt a lump in his throat. He had never sought recognition for his work and never wanted to be in the spotlight. But hearing these words from Ronaldo, the man who had inspired him all those years ago, meant more than he could express. "I have something for you," Ronaldo said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box and handed it to Samuel. Samuel opened it and gasped. Inside was a medal, gleaming gold in the sunlight. On it were engraved the words, "For outstanding service to the community." "It's from the city," Ronaldo explained. "They wanted to recognize you for all that you've done, for the lives you've changed." Samuel felt tears streaming down his face. He had never sought recognition, but this meant the world to him. "Thank you," he whispered, clutching the medal to his chest. "Thank you for everything." Ronaldo smiled, patting Samuel on the back. "No, Samuel. Thank you for reminding us all of what truly matters." The news of Samuel's awards spread quickly, and soon the office was buzzing with excitement. Everyone wanted to congratulate him, to share in his moment of recognition. But Samuel, ever the humble soul, didn't want the attention to be on him. He wanted to use this moment to shine a light on the community, on the work that still needed to be done. And so, at the award ceremony, standing in front of a crowd of dignitaries and journalists, Samuel delivered a speech that would go down in history. "This award," he said, holding up the gleaming medal, "is not about me. It's about us. It's about the power we all have to make a difference, to change lives." He spoke about the outreach programs, about the lives they had touched, and the futures they had changed. He spoke about the importance of corporate responsibility, of using our resources and influence for good. But most of all, he spoke about love, about the transformative power of kindness and compassion. "We live in a world that can often feel divided," he said, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "A world where it's easy to focus on our differences, to build walls instead of bridges. But I have seen firsthand the power of unity, of coming together in love and service. I have seen how one act of kindness can ripple out, touching lives in ways we could never imagine. So let this be a call to action. Let this be a reminder that each and every one of us has the power to make a difference. That no act of love, no matter how small, is ever wasted." As Samuel spoke, the audience was transfixed. Tears streamed down faces, hearts swelled with emotion. And when he finished, the applause was deafening, a roar of love and appreciation. In that moment, Samuel knew that his journey was far from over, that there was still so much work to be done, so many lives to touch. But he also knew that he wasn't alone, that he had an army of kindred spirits behind him, ready to carry on the work of transformation. And as he stepped down from the podium, into the embrace of his colleagues and friends, Samuel felt a sense of peace wash over him, because he knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. With love, with compassion, with the unshakable belief that a kinder world was possible. In the years that followed, Samuel's legacy continued to grow. The outreach programs he had started became a model for businesses around the world, a shining example of what was possible when companies put people and communities first. The office itself had been transformed, not just physically, but spiritually. It was now a place of joy and camaraderie, where every employee felt valued and respected. The once sterile walls were now adorned with art and greenery. The once silent hallways now echoed with laughter and conversation. And at the heart of it all was Samuel. Though he had long since retired from his janitorial duties, he remained a constant presence, a guiding light for all who knew him. He spent his days in the community garden, tending to the plants and flowers that had become his passion. He welcomed visitors from all walks of life, sharing his wisdom and his love with anyone who sought it. And though the years had aged him, his spirit remained as vibrant as ever. His eyes still sparkled with mischief, his laugh still rang out clear and joyful. One day, as he was working in the garden, Samuel received a special visitor. It was Lisa, the executive who had been one of his earliest allies. "Samuel," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I wanted to thank you for everything you've done, for everything you've taught us." Samuel smiled, taking Lisa's hand in his own weathered one. "It was a team effort," he said, echoing the words he had spoken to Ronaldo all those years ago. Lisa shook her head. "But it started with you," she said. "With your courage, your compassion. You showed us what was possible when we lead with love." Samuel felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had heard these words before, but they never failed to touch him. "The work isn't finished," he said, looking out over the thriving garden. "There's always more to do, more lives to touch." Lisa nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "And we'll keep doing it," she said. "We'll keep spreading your message, keeping your legacy alive." Samuel smiled, squeezing Lisa's hand. "I know you will," he said. "I have faith in you, in all of you." And as Lisa left the garden, Samuel knew that his work, his true purpose, would live on. Through the lives he had touched, the hearts he had changed. He closed his eyes, feeling the warm sun on his face, the soft breeze rustling through the leaves. And he knew that, no matter what the future held, his legacy of love would endure. Years turned into decades, and the world continued to change. But the lessons that Samuel had taught, the love he had shared, remained a constant guiding light. His story spread far and wide, inspiring people from all walks of life. Business leaders studied his methods, community activists followed in his footsteps. His name became synonymous with kindness, with the power of the human spirit to overcome even the greatest of challenges. And though Samuel himself passed on, his presence never truly left. It could be felt in the laughter of children playing in the community centers he had helped build, in the smiles of the homeless finding shelter in the programs he had started. It lived on in the hearts of all who had known him, all who had been touched by his love. The office where he had once worked became a place of pilgrimage, a testament to the transformative power of compassion. Visitors came from far and wide to walk the hallways he had once cleaned, to sit in the garden he had tended with such care. And always they left inspired. Inspired to be kinder, to be braver, to be the change they wished to see in the world. For that was Samuel's true gift, his true legacy. Not the awards or the accolades, but the way he had lived his life. With humility, with grace, with an unwavering commitment to love. And as the world continued to turn, as new challenges and triumphs arose, one truth remained constant. That in the end, it is not the grand gestures or the famous names that change the world. It is the quiet acts of kindness, the everyday choices to lead with love. It is the Samuels among us, the unsung heroes who toil in the background, spreading light wherever they go. And as long as there are Samuels in the world, as long as there are those willing to lead with their hearts, there will always be hope. Hope for a kinder world, a more compassionate world. A world where every act of love, no matter how small, has the power to transform lives. That was Samuel's legacy. And it is a legacy that will endure, as long as there are those willing to carry the torch of kindness forward.